Hello and welcome to today's workshop, Data Visualization with Snell Subject Librarians. This workshop is brought to you by Pathfinder. Pathfinder is an extracurricular program for incoming first and second year Northeastern students, and we provide a safe and inclusive space for students to discuss and pursue their passions. If you haven't already joined Pathfinder, you can sign up on our website. Our applications are rolling and open to any first and second year Northeastern students. Also on our website, you can find links to the moderator applications, which are open to third, fourth, and fifth year Northeastern students, as well as recent graduates. And if you're looking for more information about our program and additional resources, that can also be found on our website. If you're looking for more of our workshops from the past semester, you can check out our YouTube channel and our podcast. And I will now pass it over to Kate.
So yeah, today I am going to talk about Dataviz at the library. Some of you have probably heard of our services and some of you probably haven't. What you don't realize is that there's actually a small office in the stairwell of the library where a lot of the folks I work with sit. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those resources and how you can get help from us. So my small but mighty team is a subset of the library called Research Data Services. What that means is we help people who are doing some kind of research, whether it's a personal project or an actual formal research project that involves data. And there are three specialists. There's myself, so I'm Kate Kryder. I'm the Dataviz specialist. And then I have two colleagues. There's Bahare, who specializes in GIS, and Jen, who specializes in data management. So I'm mostly going to talk about Dataviz today, but I will also touch on what they do and a few things about some other specialists in the library who might be able to help you with your projects that you might otherwise not know existed. But we can't start with me talking about being a Dataviz specialist without talking about what data visualization is. That's sort of where we got a token start each time. So I'm gonna start by showing you all this image and saying, does anyone know what this is? It is a data visualization. And I'm gonna give you a minute to guess. This is not a trick question. You all know what this is. So I will give you a hint if you haven't already figured it out. This is related to climate change. I'm going to give people 5 more seconds, but it's also okay. Again, you don't have to answer. So if I tell you that this is a visualization of global warming, does it start to click for anyone?
This is the temperature?
Yes, this is the average, you nailed it. This is the average global temperature from 1850 to 2018. Now, once I start to give you a bit more information about it, you can immediately see, oh, if it's temperature, clearly the planet is getting warmer. This is a very abstract form of data visualization. I show it to you first because the hope is that something like this, where you take information and you make it visual, but maybe it doesn't have all of these numbers and like the stuffy axes and things we think about with Dataviz, it makes the subject matter intuitive. Once I tell you that this is global temperature, you can sort of cringe and say, gosh, it's getting really red on the right. And you start to empathize with the data and with the message behind it. So data visualization is any time we take information and make it visual. So this counts as a data visualization. But what most people think of is something like this. This is a New York Times piece in the flesh. It's actually interactive and you hover around with your mouse, but since we don't all have a subscription, this is a static screenshot. What this is a visualization of different natural disasters in the US. The sort of x-axis lined paper style lines are different years, and each semicircular hump is a different natural disaster. It's colored based on the type, and the size of the hump is how much it cost. So the point of this visualization here, other than being beautiful and newsy, is that there's this ginormous purple semicircle sort of in the middle of the visualization. Some of you might be familiar with this, but this is Hurricane Katrina. So part of the point of this visualization was, wow, Hurricane Katrina was incredibly costly. This is what most people think of when they think of Dataviz, and they think like, oh, I need to do coding, or it needs to look like it's a New York Times piece. I want you to reflect on this for a second, and then I'm going to show you This visualization tells you the exact same thing. This is also how expensive different hurricanes in the US were, but it's a bar chart and you can right away find Hurricane Katrina and go, oh my God, that was so much more expensive than other hurricanes. And the takeaway here is it doesn't always need to be this like fancy one-off New York Times piece. More often than not, a simple like bar chart style visualization gets your point across quickly and easily, and your audience doesn't have to take a lot of time to like figure out a new visual language and what artsy thing you're doing. So keeping in mind that a bar chart works, it also doesn't have to be something that you produce in Excel. This is a hand-drawn bar chart visualization by the journalist Mona Chalabi. She does hand-drawn visualizations, is very well known for them. They're critically acclaimed. And the point here, this is a visualization of years that a country has had a female head of state. You'll notice, sadly, there at the bottom is the US with nothing, no years. But the point here is you can even hand draw a visualization if you want. The point is not how formal and stuffy or coded your visual is, it's how much impact the message itself has. And then possibly more relevant to some of you entrepreneurial folks, this is a snapshot. Someone has reproduced slides from the very famous pitch deck that Airbnb did when they were proposing their idea. Highly recommend folks look it up if you're interested in startups. It's sort of the classic teaching example. But the point here is the slide on the left has a visualization called big numbers. I kid you not, just using large numbers to underscore your point counts as a visual. And the slide on the right, someone has sized different circles on their PowerPoint slide to emphasize the different sizes of the numbers they're talking about. This is also data visualization and it's incredibly compelling. So just a few examples to keep in mind what we're talking about here. But we should talk about why do we use data viz? Why is it worth our time when we can use words or get up and be hand wavy during a presentation? So I'm going to ask you 2 exercises here that I promise are fun. It is also okay, again, if folks are shy this morning, I can just go through the exercise. So what I'm going to do is I'm about to show you an image, and to yourself or in your head privately, if you'd like, I want you to call out what is in that image when you realize what is there. Okay, here we go. Give you a second to figure out what's there. Hopefully folks' connection is strong enough to see it. I'm going to go ahead and say there, if you have found it, is a lion hidden in the grass. The point of this image is that there's actually a massive amount of visual information encoded in this piece. You had to quickly scan all of this grass going back and forth, pick out that lion and find it sort of camouflaged in this image. This is actually to show that our brains are capable of processing a massive amount of information visually. You know, we were designed to be able to pick out the lion in the grass or the berry we wanted to eat in the bush. So our brains are hardwired to process information visually, and we can take advantage of this by creating data visualizations. Now I've got another exercise for you. On the next screen, I want you to count the number of 3s in this image. Give everyone a bit of time. I know this is the sort of crossword style puzzle that most people abhor. Promise it's good for your brain.
I think I see 6.
Yes, so there are 6 in this image, but I imagine most of you did not enjoy picking out those 3s quite as much as you enjoyed looking at the lion. There wasn't as much of a hurrah moment. And part of the point here is that the sort of numbers and visual language we usually use for data is not as intuitive. Almost all of us have to take a moment to say, is it a 3? Is it an 8? Is it a B? What am I looking at? What does 3 mean again? Is that bigger than 4? There's a lot of processing that goes between identifying those characters and actually processing the meaning. And the point here is that a lot of data viz that we create isn't as intuitive as it could be if I were to change this visual and re-give you the exercise like this, you would probably far prefer it. Now it's much faster to pick out the threes. And the point here is we can aim for this type of visualization, which allows us to leverage our ability to process massive amounts of information, but we have to help people get there. It should be as intuitive as this. Okay, next bit, how might you all actually use Dataviz? You might say to yourself, I don't have a lot of charts and graphs. It's not something that comes up in my life. Why would I use this for a project? And we're going to go through an example here, a very serious example. So prepare yourselves for the backstory. I don't know if you all are familiar. In the US, there's something called Girl Scout cookies. In particular, there is a popular cookie called the Thin Mint. It is a mint flavored chocolate cookie. You don't need to know more than that to understand this story, but here I have an image of two different Thin Mint cookies. So in this story, a project occurs between you and your roommate. You come back maybe from spring break or Thanksgiving break, and both of you have Girl Scout cookies. One of you bought them on campus, and one of you lives somewhere else and bought them at home. You're eating your cookies and you have the cookie on the left, and you say to yourself, these Thin Mints that I bought on campus are not as good as I remember. And your roommate says, mine are great. What are you talking about? You put them next to each other and you realize, hey, mine on the left looks like a little more wavy, like there's something wrong with it. Like, did I get fake Girl Scout cookies? So you investigate. You put both of your boxes together and you say, oh my goodness, my box on the left is a completely different size. It even has a different tagline. Mine says crispy chocolate wafers dipped in a mint fudge coating, and your roommate says crispy chocolatey cookies made with natural peppermint oil. And this is when you start to think you've gotten swindled. Maybe you have bought fake Girl Scout cookies. But what you learn after a little bit of Googling is that there are actually two different companies that make Girl Scout cookies in the US. And you begin to suspect that one is far superior to the other, and what you bought on campus is not very good. So you and your roommate buy as many Girl Scout cookies as you can. You get a parent of your roommate to send it from home. You buy a bunch of different ones on campus, and you parcel them out and start trying them. This is where data visualization can come in first. You guys could just have a cookie binge fest and go back and forth and be laughing about, oh, let's try this one or that one. But using data visualization could help you be organized. So what you start with is seeing that there's two bakeries, ABC Bakers and Little Brownie Bakers, and they have different names for different cookies. They have different types, and you can start to lay them out and get a sense for yourself which one is better than the other. You do your taste testing and you figure out you far prefer most of the Little Brownie Bakers cookies. And you eventually figure out, yes, it's almost certain that everyone would prefer Little Brownie Bakers. It's a superior bakery. Now is when your business opportunity comes into play. You get yourself some data at the county level that says which bakery supplies that county's cookies. This is the point at which, if this turned into a really big project where you were getting data from all over, maybe you wanted to do the world's Girl Scout cookie distribution, you might ask for Jen's expertise in data management. As it is right now, what you have is this Excel file that has a very formal state code, a county code, the name of the county, and the bakery. This doesn't mean anything to you if you're just combing through Excel. So there's two reasons we usually do data viz. One is if we're exploring something, and the other is if we're explaining something. So in this case, what you have is a table of data. This is like the exercise of threes. Visually, it doesn't mean that much. If, however, you were to use data visualization or GIS to make a map, in this case, I've used Tableau, we can instantly start to see who's supplied by Little Brownie Bakers and who's supplied by ABC Bakers, and you start to see the tricky situation we're in Boston. Eastern Massachusetts has the inferior bakery. Western Massachusetts has the superior one, and you as a shrewd entrepreneur can now see that there's a business opportunity. You could help people get the better cookies on campus. So the next step is you and your roommate decide we should make a pitch for this. We should start a business. Your roommate's maybe a graphic designer, puts together a little logo, says, I've got it, I've got it. We're gonna run a company called Smart Cookie. I've got a visualization I made in Excel. We're gonna get people to invest in this and give us a little bit of money so that we can help hook people up with the superior cookies. This is another opportunity to use data visualization, but instead of exploring, now you want to be able to explain your point. So I'm just going to do a quick exercise in how you might improve this visualization to help say your pitch deck. So most people think when they're doing data viz that you want to keep adding. You want to add as much information and as much formality, as many grid lines and labels as you can to sort of lend credibility to your visualization. The opposite is actually true. The longer it takes for people to understand your visualization, the less likely they are to trust it. If they find it confusing, they'll say, I don't know, maybe they made stuff up or they're just trying to pull one over on me. So when you're making a visualization, there's a common design phrase, and it's your design is not finished when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away. So you can play a little game with yourself anytime you're making a visual. Keep taking things away until you've taken away too much, and you can always put it back. So in this case, the first thing we would do is remove that outline. Doesn't actually mean anything. We don't need it. It doesn't add information. It's just visual clutter. And the next thing we would do is remove it from being a pie chart, change it to a line chart. It's very difficult for our brains to process the pie shape. I don't know if you've ever tried like splitting a pizza with friends and been trying to figure out, like, is that last slice bigger or smaller? It's very hard to make comparisons. But if we switch this to a bar chart, it's much faster to say, well, one bar is longer than the other. I've got it. The next thing we can do is sort that visualization so we can immediately see what's the top cookie we're dealing with here. Surprise, surprise, it's Thin Mints. The next thing we can do is remove the vertical grid lines. We find we don't particularly need them. We can also, on that x-axis, remove the decimal points. We definitely don't need 2 decimal places here. We can also remove the y-axis ticks. We can remove the decimals from the labels on each of the bars. We can remove the grid lines entirely if we want. We can improve this title. Everyone already knows that it's about Girl Scout cookies, so we can shorten it just to favorite cookie. We can bring these bars closer together, and then we can add emphasis to underscore our point. So we have gone from that bar chart where it wasn't quite obvious what we were trying to convey to now when you have your pitch deck, people are going to see, oh, cute branding, smart cookie. What's their point? Thin Mints. Everybody loves Thin Mints. We're going to sell a superior Thin Mint. So this is just a taste of how you all might interact with some visualization principles while you're doing a project on your own. Again, that was everything from exploring and doing your initial finding of tasting the cookies to making the data you found legible as a map to making a beautiful visualization in order to get your point across and convince people. The last thing here being, how can you actually get help and what does that mean here? There are a lot of different resources. The first thing is you can email and set up appointments with me, whether that's you have some data and you're trying to figure out how you would visualize it, or you're trying to make a slick pitch deck at the end and you want to figure out how can I get my message across. But then there are also subject guides and subject librarians. So the subject guides are various subjects such as anthropology or architecture that librarians have made lists of resources for. If you're trying to delve into a new field you don't know that much about, these are incredibly helpful to get you started. They'll also tell you what librarian would have the best expertise. But you can also go to the subject librarian page, and it lists different subjects, again, such as architecture or biochemistry, and the relevant librarian. So if you're going to start a project, but you don't know a lot about the subject matter, or you're trying to delve into very particular research, these librarians can help you out. And then, apologies, it keeps advancing slides. The last thing is, you may not know that you have access to various software through Northeastern. Obviously, PowerPoint and Excel are most common, but if you're interested in learning how to design very refined visuals, you do have access to Adobe as a student. And you can also get a free 1-year Tableau license. So I've also included a link for how to get more information on various tools there, but there are things you have access to through Northeastern while you're a student. Highly recommend you take advantage of them. And then the last bit is, I have credits for the beautiful visualizations I used from various people, should you all be interested in finding more out about them. But that's it for me delivering my spiel. I would love if anyone who's on today has additional questions to answer them as best I can.
Thank you so much, Kate. I had a quick question just about meeting with you. So last year I met with you for one of my data visualization projects, and it was super helpful. And I brought sketches and different ideas, but if you could just give us a little more information on, what you might need to prepare before you meet with a data visualization specialist or other specialists in the library, what kind of stages you might be at in your project, and how you can best interact with the Snell subject librarians.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. I'll come back to the resources page just so you all can see again how you would get to the various subject librarians. Most of us have a link, such as this one I have here, that takes you to a scheduling page where you can book an appointment. Right now, many of us are virtual, but the beauty of this is if it's late at night and you are panicking about a project or want to schedule some time for later in the week, you can usually do this in an automated fashion. So you can schedule an appointment somewhere that works between your schedule and the librarians. As far as how to prepare for an appointment and what to bring, it usually varies. If you're at the beginning of your research process, come with an idea of what you'd like help with. Instead of just saying, I'm looking for data, go to the business librarian and say, I'm looking for data specifically about, Girl Scout cookies and the bakery. I've looked at X and Y. Do you know of any databases I could look at, or have any tips on that? You can usually reach out with a simple question like that over email. But if it's something more complicated, maybe your project's a little amorphous, you don't even know what kind of data you need to be looking for, you can book an appointment and you can always ask that individual librarian what to prepare. Usually it's good to have an idea of what you want to get out of the appointment. What will success look like at the end? And then to know that the librarians are there to help support you doing your own project, but they can't do it for you or spend many hours looking for the data. They can only put you on to the resources to find it yourself. As far as meeting with me, you can meet with me at any point in the process. If you have a verbal or written project, but you want to add visuals, a lot of people come in when they know they have a paper and they'd like a visualization. It's okay to come with the paper and have us talk about what messages you might want to create or visualizations you might want to add. All the way down to if you have a very finished visualization and you just want feedback on it, or if you're starting to learn something like a tool like Tableau and you're doing a project in it, we can meet about how to do something in that. Very varied. Did anyone else have a question?
I also have a question. So this might be some students' first introduction to data visualization. So do you have any classes or faculty or departments that you could recommend or speak to that students could look into if they're looking to take a class or something on data visualization?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I would say it's a judgment-free zone. When I started in Dataviz, I had no training. I did my portfolio in PowerPoint, which I don't recommend, but you can enter at any point, whether that's hand-drawn or actually learning a tool. I will say a lot of the professors in, say, the humanities are actually very open to the idea of hand-drawn visualization. So I recommend if you're already in a class and you'd like to start learning Dataviz, ask for permission. Say, can I do a hand-drawn, or I'm trying to learn Excel or Tableau. Is it okay if it looks a little rough? And most professors are happy that you're trying to upskill anyway, so they'll be very supportive. But as far as classes go, there are 2 resources I would recommend. The first is NewViz at Northeastern. We're Googling live, everyone. So this is the Dataviz Consortium at Northeastern. They're not always actively having events, but they do try and keep a list of classes. So if I go under people and resources, they have a list of Dataviz related courses. That is obviously a huge task to stay up to date with the registrar and constant changes. You can try Googling in the registration where you're searching for courses. You can search for the keyword Dataviz and some things will come up there, but also the IDV program, the Information Design and Visualization Program. And of course, it goes to the PDF and not the site. Come on, Google. Here, it's the second link. The IDV program within CAMD is technically a master's or MFA program for Dataviz, but they have a lot of courses within CAMD that you might be able to take. So I recommend checking out their page as well. I also do a search every semester to find classes to work with. So if you're a little lost, you can try reaching out to me and see if I've done the registration search that year and point you on to something that might be relevant.
And then we usually just like to ask our hosts if they have any advice for new Northeastern students, first or second years. Kate, I believe you went to Northeastern, so any advice or reflections on your early days would be appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, I always give the advice of like, don't be discouraged by the co-op application process. It's hard for everyone, but in terms of actual practical, actionable advice, I would say, I know it sounds cheesy, but go to the library for help. It saved me as a student when I was lost on a research project. I thought, oh, I don't know, maybe the library's outdated. I don't know that I need a book. Do I really need research help? And it turned out that there was a librarian who could help me. I wanted to do a project on the Boston Public Library's circulation of books and how in East Boston that reflected their diversity. And I thought, no one can help me. I'll have to do this on my own. And I got connected with a subject librarian. They helped me get a phone number of someone at BPL, and my project went from something I was never going to finish and was really anxious about to something I could crank out in a weekend and was really proud about. It turned into something I could make into a news piece. So I would just say, if you have a project percolating in the back of your mind, don't hesitate to reach out to someone who has a little bit more expertise in the area. It's part of what we pay for, is that knowledge and expertise at the library, and don't hesitate to use it because they're really nice and they're there to help you. That's what we do for a living, and we're thrilled when you come into our office. So don't be afraid of it the way you might be afraid of office hours. Like, there's no judgment and people are just there to help.
Yeah, that's great. And we really encourage everyone to use these resources because they are excellent. I've used them. I think they're great. And you can just build great relationships too with different staff on campus. So does anyone else have any other questions? Because I think otherwise we are all set for our workshop today. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Kate, and all the folks at Snell for doing such great work. And we look forward to working with you again soon, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully some of you guys show up in my office. I'll be lonely if you don't.
All right. Pathfinder meets every week for roundtable discussions. We also meet weekly for workshops just like this one. So check out our Google Calendar and join in next time. Thank you so much and have a great day.